Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. Oh my goodness, that's a really good question because you would probably get just a few people that would be on it. At 68, Vince Gill still acts like the nice guitar-playing singer that fans loved many years ago. But behind his smooth voice and rouse-off, Grammy Awards is a side of Gill the public almost never sees. The quiet one who finds fault, the tough competitor. The man who has kept his real thoughts hidden under many years of country music charm. During his career, Gill quietly didn't like artists who went after fame instead of skill, who broke the rules of old ways or who didn't respect the music style he spent his life protecting. And now, in a new interview, Vince Gill tells us the names of these 7 artists. You may think you know Vince Gill, but after this you'll never hear his music or theirs the same way again. Let's start at the beginning. Before he was famous, before the fights, because by the time we get to the last person on his list, you'll be asking questions about everything you thought you knew about country music kings and queens. The making of Vince Gill. He grew up in Norman, Oklahoma. Not really Nashville, but close enough to have big dreams. Vince Gill was born into a house filled with music and tough lessons. His father was a federal judge and a part-time musician. Strict, but caring. It was from him that Gill learned both how to behave and how to play guitar, lessons that would shape not just his music, but his whole life. Vince's path to success was filled with sadness. He joined bluegrass bands in his early years, working hard through small shows, sleeping in vans, and taking whatever money he could get together. He learned to make it on talent, toughness, and the help of other musicians who saw his special gift. But everything changed when he joined the country rock band Pure Prairie League. His voice made people notice, and this time it didn't hang up. In the 80s and 90s, he became a regular of the country scene. 21 Grammy wins, countless other awards, and respect from every part of the music business. He became known as a songwriter's songwriter, a musician who never took easy ways and never followed trends. His guitar spoke with class, his song words with honesty. But with that success came something else. Disappointment. Because behind the scenes, Vince watched as the music style he loved began to change. Faster, flashier, more businesslike. Country music was changing, and not always in ways he liked. He saw artists become famous on looks instead of skill. He watched real songwriting give way to mass-market recipes. Awards began going to acts he felt hadn't worked hard enough, who built careers on tricks, catchy phrases, and shock value rather than real stuff. He sat in award shows clapping nicely even as his blood got hot. He saw performers lip-syncing while real musicians were pushed to the shadows. He watched music business bosses reward artists who played politics instead of playing instruments. And worst of all, he watched the heart of country music. Truth, struggle, being humble get replaced by fake things, flash, and made-up rebellion. He kept quiet for years, but now the gloves are off. Vince never said names until now. Kris Kristofferson. We make it through the nights pretty great. Why Lord's great? Would you call this guy a great singer? Not really. This one shocked even longtime fans because for many years, Vince Gill publicly praised the legends, the greats who paved the way. But behind the scenes, there was one name that, according to people who know, Vince has stayed away from completely. Kris Kristofferson. They came from different worlds. Kris was the outlaw poet. Rough, messy, unpredictable. He'd crash parties, talk unclearly through interviews, and still walk out with the room's respect. Vince, on the other hand, was exact, polished, a skilled worker in the studio, and a perfectionist on stage. He valued technical skill, song structure, and voice control. And while Vince never openly attacked Kristofferson, there was something in the way he avoided his name in interviews, something in the long pauses, something not said, but felt. A story from a CMA rehearsal went around for years. When Kristofferson was supposed to perform, Vince reportedly left early, mumbling something about not watching another train wreck on stage. It was never confirmed. But in Nashville, stories like that don't need proof-tastic. Privately, Vince was said to be deeply frustrated by the way critics made Kristofferson's messiness romantic, calling it real, gritty, and true, while other, more skilled performers who practiced really hard got passed over. One close friend claimed Vince once said, "It's not deep, it's just sloppy. We lowered the bar and called it genius." He didn't hate Kristofferson's success. He didn't like how it rewrote the rules of what greatness looked like. To Vince, artistry was about mastering your craft. Kris, in his eyes, had skipped the discipline and been rewarded for the damage. Years went by, and the tension never fully went away. There were no duets, no tributes, no working together. Even when Vince hosted events honoring other greats from Kristofferson's time, his name was clearly absent, like a ghost left off the guest list. And now, in a rare moment of honesty, Gill finally included him on the list. Not out of meanness, but because the divide was too deep to deny. But if Vince saw Kristofferson as a symbol of chaos, the next artist represented something even worse in his eyes. The moment country music sold its soul. Garth Brooks. It's almost wrong to suggest tension between Vince, Gill, and Garth Brooks, tokens of the music business, two names carved into the DNA of country music. But if you know the history, if you follow the subtle signals, the divide becomes impossible to ignore. Vince was the craftsman, the quiet poet, the guy who'd spend hours making perfect a solo rewriting a verse until it felt like truth. Garth, he brought fireworks, headset mics, and a stadium-sized ego to the music style. He turned country concerts into rock spectacles, and to some, including Vince, it felt like something sacred was being stepped on. It wasn't just the performances, it was the way of thinking. Gill valued subtlety, holding back, melody. Garth valued movement, flash, size. Where Vince delivered heartbreak with a whisper, Garth roared about it across sold-out arenas. Gill saw himself as a protector of country's roots. Garth, to him, was the builder of its business revolution, for better or worse. In interviews, Gill once said sadly that we lost the stories in country music. He never pointed fingers directly, but fans connected the dots. He didn't have to say Garth's name. Everyone knew who rewrote the rules and changed the river. And when Garth began selling out arenas and winning award shows, many felt the soul of country was fading, and Vince, with his sad ballads and guitar solos, was being quietly pushed aside. People who know say Vince was polite in public, but quietly mourned what the music style had become. He reportedly turned down chances to present Garth with Lifetime Achievement awards, not out of bitterness, but because he couldn't fake admiration he didn't feel. It wasn't just a stylistic clash, it was a way of thinking one. To Vince, country music wasn't about fireworks or crowd surfing. It was about storytelling, roots, humility. And Garth, for all his success, represented a time where those values got lost in the roar of the crowd. Was it jealousy, or just heartbreak watching a music style transform beyond recognition? Maybe both. Either way, Gill never celebrated Garth's wins. He didn't clap at the standing ovations. He never showed up to those front row seats. Next up, a mullet-wearing heartthrob who made country explode for all the wrong reasons. Billy Ray Cyrus, achy breaky heart made Billy Ray Cyrus a household name overnight. It was catchy. It was viral before viral was a thing, and it sent country music straight into pop culture history. But not everyone was clapping. Vince Gill, whose musical background was rooted in jazz-level complexity, deep songwriting, and traditional country values, reportedly found the track insulting to real musicianship. In a CMA green room, Gill was overheard joking that Billy Ray's song set country music back 10 years, and it wasn't just a one-time remark. That quote circulated like wildfire among music business insiders, fueling guessing that Gill saw Billy Ray as a threat to the music style's integrity. To Vince, country music was supposed to be about stories, pain, hope, truth. But there came Billy Ray with a one-liner hook, a dance craze, and a marketing engine so big it drowned out everything else. Gill once reportedly said the song wasn't country, it was karaoke with Amulet. The two never worked together, never shared a stage, and if they passed each other in the hallway it was said to be icy at best. While some artists tried to balance new ideas with respect for the roots, Billy Ray seemed to sprint in the opposite direction. He leaned into the flash, the hair, the hips, the gimmick. To Vince, it all felt like a parody of what country was supposed to be. Heartfelt, grounded, and born of lived experience. Gill didn't at Billy Ray personally. He never needed to. But he couldn't stand what Billy Ray represented. A rise in gimmicky image over substance music that began pulling Nashville in a direction Gill had spent his life resisting. And the next artist. She sold more albums than nearly anyone in the music style's history, and Gill couldn't bear the sound of her records. Shania Twain. To the world, Shania Twain was the queen of country pop. Harris was meteoric, groundbreaking, glamorous, and unstoppable. But to many purists, including Vince Gill, she was something else entirely. A disruptor. Her glossy production, pop-drenched hooks, and massive crossover appeal left little room for the kind of raw, roots-driven music Gill championed. In her wake, a wave of artists followed, chasing the same sleek formula, leaving tradition behind in favor of market-tested melodies and million-dollar music videos. Though he never named her directly, Gill once said, "We lost a generation of real country, fans chasing radio hits." He later added, "Sometimes we forget what music style we're in." For longtime fans, it wasn't hard to read between the lines. And while most legends in the music business eventually crossed paths, shared tributes, duets, or at least a shared stage, Gill and Twain never did. Not during her rise, not at award shows, and not even during music-style spanning tributes where their names easily belonged side by side. Fort Woo, massive artists in the same lane, that silence wasn't just awkward. It was deafening. Behind closed doors, some people who know said Vince saw Shania's rise as a tipping point. When Nashville started chasing trends instead of talent, and when country music started sounding like anything but and the next name, he redefined bro country and left Vince shaking his head. Jason Aldean. Jason Aldean burst onto the scene with baseball caps, heavy guitars, and lyrics that leaned more into trucks, whiskey, and tailgates than heartbreak and truth. His sound was loud, his brand was bold, and his fan base exploded almost overnight. But while mainstream audiences embraced him, not everyone in Nashville was impressed. Vince Gill, meanwhile, has always championed songwriting as an art form, storytelling as soul, and he didn't hide his disapproval of the bro country wave. "You think, we've dumbed it down," he once told Rolling Stone. "There's room for fun in music, but let's not pretend it's country just because there's a pickup truck in the video." That wasn't a passing opinion. It was a shot across the bow. To Gill, Aldean's rise marked another departure from the values he fought to preserve. Loud production, shallow lyrics, and what Gill called lifestyle marketing over lived experience were never what he believed country music stood for. Though Aldean and Gill have both appeared at major country festivals, they've never shared a bill. And people who know say Gill has quietly declined to present or attend any event where Aldean was the featured headliner. It wasn't about ego, it was about identity. Gill couldn't bring himself to endorse what Aldean represented. The distance wasn't just stylistic, it was philosophical. One built his legacy on substance, the other on spectacle. But if Aldean was too loud for Gill, the next guy might have been too loud for the whole world. Kanye West. This one might sound far-fetched, but hear us out. Vince Gill never named Kanye West, but in multiple interviews he's made one thing abundantly clear. He believes the ego in modern music is suffocating. He's called out artists who chase fame over craft, spectacle over substance. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is. In 2016, Gill said in an interview, "I see young artists walk into a room and expect the world to bow. Back in my day, you earned respect by listening first." When pressed if he meant anyone in particular, Gill just smiled and said nothing. But the timing of that quote was no coincidence. It came the very same month Kanye declared himself the greatest artist of all time during a now infamous rant. The media ran wild with speculation. Fans read between the lines. The music business, they said, knew exactly who Vince meant. To Gill, music is sacred. It's about humility, service, and sincerity. It's not about hijacking award shows or demanding attention at every turn. And Kanye, whether intentionally or not, became the embodiment of everything Vince seemed to stand against. Chaos over control, self-worship over soul. They've never crossed paths, never needed to. Because to Vince this wasn't about music style, it was about values. So now you know the 7 names Vince Gill couldn't stand publicly or privately. From legends to pop stars to music-style bending risk-takers, these weren't casual disagreements. These were deep fractures in the soul of country music. Moments where Vince chose silence over support, dignity over popularity.